Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.
Hello, Resilient listeners. This is Jen Chambers, and you're listening to Resilient with Jen Chambers. We are going to start a 4-week series called Your Voice Matters, How to Tell Your Story. Part of this is selfishly me wanting you to submit to my anthology that I'll share information for afterward. But also, I think it's so incredibly important for everyone to learn how to tell their own story, whether it's for your people to come after you or to better understand yourself or to connect with other people. I think sharing our stories is one of the most powerful ways that we can heal and connect and inspire change, because you never know who's listening, whether you write it down or whether you decide to tell it in podcast form. So today we're kicking off that special 4-part series called How to Tell Your Story. This is designed to help you craft and share your own story of resilience. Whether you face things like chronic illness or loss or other life challenges, whatever they may be, your voice matters, your story matters. And this series will hopefully give you the confidence to tell it. In this first episode, we're going to dive into something called Finding Your Story, how to uncover the experiences that shaped you. Now, this is a series that's very near and dear to me. Not a lot of my podcast listeners know this part, but my day job is actually as a writer. I think my 32nd book is coming out the summer of 2025. A lot of those beginning ones were anthologies. And I've written everything. I've written everything from children's stories to cookbooks to history, nonfiction, fiction of every kind, romance, horror stories, mysteries, fantasy. I just wrote everything that I wanted to try so I could find what works. Kind of writing your way home, if you will. And I learned to help other people tell their stories when I became part owner of a literary magazine and small publishing company about 12 years ago. We had a literary quarterly that was nonprofit, and we gave it to our community, and we sent it all over the world for free. So we had to learn to do things like grant writing and solicit donations, and we learned to be editors. I did that in school as well, but I got a crash course doing that. Honestly, I've been working in newspapers and magazines since high school, but this was so much more. It was so incredible to really help people and to speak with them one-on-one. These were often people who had no kind of experience in writing, but they had something that they really needed to say. And it was incredible. I got to help over 1,200 people in the time that I did it. It was wonderful. It was so much fun. And because of that, I learned to help people tell their stories, as I say, but it also helped me learn to write my own story. My first book, that I often say is my worst book, but it was my first one. I really wanted, all I really wanted actually, when I had my brain injury, was to have someone understand what it felt like. And so I searched and searched for other literature for people who had survived brain injury and been successful. And at the time, I had my injury in 1992, so it was a long time ago. But people didn't survive as well as I was lucky to. So I decided to write my own story, and hopefully it would help other people, but mostly it felt like it would help me. And I did a lot of interviews because I didn't feel that I could really share what I was feeling. I kind of hid behind using other people's stories, but I ended up fictionalizing it, and I used the foil of another person. So it tells, my first book called Learning Life Again tells the story of 2 people's experiences with brain injury and recovering from that. It was incredible. It was It was scary. It was a lot less scary, as I say, because I fictionalized it. And that's something that anyone has the ability to do if your story is too intimate. As long as you say that it's literary fiction and you aren't pretending that it's the truth. But there's a lot of leeway there and a lot of wiggle room because truth is objective. And as long as you're clear about that, we'll go over that a little bit more later on in the series. It's interesting though. There's all different ways that you can tell these stories. And my story it ended up being something that got me into the Iowa Summer Writing Conference and Summer Writing Program. So it was really, really useful. Okay, so like I said a little bit, in this episode, we're going to dive into finding your story, how to uncover the experiences that shaped you, what themes resonate most with you, and where to start. And I'll also guide you through some exercises to help bring your story into focus. So grab a journal or a laptop, a cup of tea, and let's get started. Now, on why your story matters. Before we begin, I want to say this, and I'm going to say this a lot. Your story is so valuable, no matter where you are in your journey. You don't have to have a perfect ending or a dramatic climax or a bestseller-worthy tale. Your lived experience, the struggles and the triumphs, and even the messy parts, is enough. It's enough. Sharing your story can be healing. It helps us think about and make sense of the things that we've been through. But it also helps other people who may be walking a similar path. When we tell these stories, we create connection because we remind other people that they are not alone. Now, I also know that figuring out what to share and where to start can feel overwhelming. So let's break it down together. But again, I want you to remember, don't edit yourself. We're not at that stage. You're here to talk about the feelings. Now we're going to do some exercises. So it'd be great if you had a journal or a piece of paper or a laptop out. The first exercise is, I like to do this one a lot. It's a life timeline. You draw, or on your laptop, you get a line across the top of your document. On the left side, you write beginning, and on the right side, write now. I want you to think about starting at any point you would like. Think about turning points in your life, especially those where you faced challenges or had to be resilient, and then mark them along the timeline. So it could be things like, I was born at X date and I fell out of a tree and broke my leg, and it meant that I could never play baseball again, or whatever your thing is, that happened when I was 8. Or you can start your story at the point where you fell out of the tree, or you can start your story at the point of time that you got married and things changed, or that you didn't get married and things changed. So it's really interesting to write those points down, starting at the beginning of your life and going up to now. And also it gives you an idea of structure that you could use. You don't have to. But when you're done, and it'll take a few minutes, and you can go back to this, of course. Nothing's permanent. But take a second and look at what you wrote. What pieces stand out? Is there a particular, a certain experience that changed you significantly, or something like, I always say whenever I'm talking about my story, my story is super easy there's a very definitive before and after, because before my car accident, I was a different person, not only, literally, but figuratively, both. Apparently they tell me I was really different before, and I think I was kind of a jerk, but I was a kid. My accident happened when I was 15, so who knows? That's one of the other great things about writing these is you get a chance to have a little grace. We all screw up and we all make decisions that have impacts that we don't necessarily know what's going to happen. But as you think about these, you can think about which ones stand out and why. It could be the moment that you got a diagnosis, or the day that your grandma died, or the day that you decided to stop the negative self-talk and stand up for yourself. So I want you, once you're done thinking about these, I want you to circle 2 or 3 of these moments. And these are the stories that are waiting to be told for you. Now we're going to think about choosing a theme. What message do you want to share? What are you here to talk about? Once you've identified a few of these key moments, our next step is figure out exactly what theme calls to you. Every story has one. And I mean, there are so many of these. I can share some resources for, you've got a classic hero's journey that has certain themes, but there's a lot of different themes you can choose from. And I will share on my Instagram and my website different themes. And I'll suggest, like I say, some books that can help you with that. But common themes are overcoming fear, or finding strength when you didn't have any, or like rediscovering joy after loss, or learning to trust yourself. So in the next exercise, I want you to write on the top of your paper or the top of your document, we're going to define your why. Let's take a minute here and we're going to ask yourself, why do I want to share this particular story? Now, when we're doing this, I want you to write a single sentence that sums it up. And you can do this for any of the moments that you picked, or any of the other moments for that matter. But for example, I want to share my story, and start it that way. I want to share my story because I want to share my story to show others that healing isn't linear. I want to share my experience so others with chronic illness or brain injury or having a heart attack at 42 feel less alone. I want to share how resilience can come from the hardest moments. It can be anything that makes sense and is important to you. When you know why you're telling that story, it helps guide how you tell it. And it makes everything you write that much more important and poignant. And when you write about something that matters to you, people see that and people can resonate with that. Okay, our third exercise is a snapshot of your story. And like I say, these can all be changed, but this is a really good idea of how to start your story. And I know that you can call it memoir, you can call it a lot of different kinds of stories. We don't really need to go there right now. It's your story. We can give it a label later. But now that you have a sense of what story you want to tell and why, let's do a quick snapshot of that. Get another piece of paper or a document. Let's set your timer for 5 minutes. Please write a paragraph about one of these moments that you circled earlier. Just let everything it's stream of consciousness through your pen or through your fingers. You don't have to worry about punctuation or perfection or getting it all exactly right. An easy way to do this is to do it quickly, which is why it's great to have the timer, because you don't really have time to think about it. You're just doing. I want you to describe what happened in this story, how you felt, and what changed. This is an example that I found. I remember, this is quotations here, I'm sorry. I remember the moment my doctor gave me the diagnosis, the sterile smell of the room, the clock ticking too loudly. I felt my breath catch, my world shift. I don't know what life would look like after that moment, but I knew that I had to keep going, unquote. Did you feel something as you wrote your paragraph? That's your story coming to life. When you're doing this descriptive snapshot, I want you to think about the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I also want you to bring in all of your senses. Did you notice in that small example that I read, they talked about the smell of the room and the clock ticking loudly. And what happened? He got the diagnosis. And then the feelings, I felt my breath catch, my world shift. You could even add a lot more descriptive things to that paragraph, but that's a really good small snapshot. And yet that could be an entire huge story. What happened before, what happened after, how they got to the doctor's office, the long story of how 8 doctors gaslit him beforehand before he got to the diagnosis. You could have a whole world there just in that one small paragraph. So that's how the story comes to life. And this will be good to refer back to later, but it's great to have something to work from, something small to work from that gives you the real heart and the key of what you want to say and why. I'm so excited to be on this trip with you guys. You did it. You've taken the first step. I want you to tell your story because it's so important. So this week, I have some homework for you. I encourage you to keep journaling, and you can do that by hand or however you want to do it. You can do voice memos if you don't want to write it down. Expand on this story snapshot that you wrote and think about your life timeline. Look at that a couple times, maybe while you're journaling. See if there's any other smaller things you can add. If you're writing something about your grandmother passing away, you could reflect back to a time when you went back to her hometown. You could remember the story that she told you about what she did during World War II. And you can link those stories and make sure you just write notes to yourself so that you know what to write later. But while you're doing all of this, remind yourself that your voice deserves to be heard. And don't edit yourself. Don't censor yourself either. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be lyrical. It can be ugly. Things happen in our lives that aren't necessarily comfortable to write about, but those are often the most important. So next week, we're going to dive into shaping this story and how to structure it so that it's compelling and more engaging, but keeping it uniquely your story. Thank you so much for listening. If you love this series, and if you want to be part of the Woven with Light, Mended with Gold anthology that I talked about at the beginning, keep listening. I'll share details on how you could submit your story. You can always DM it to me, or you can find me at my website jennifer-chambers.com. The most important thing is that you get your story down for yourself. You matter. It's important. Your voice is important and your story matters. And I can't wait to hear all about it. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time.
Sometimes we have to start over. Sometimes we have to fight back. Sometimes it's all too much. Lost inside the black. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Sometimes we need to lift the voices of those who've overcome and expose the ones that made the choices will stay and fight, not run. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.